All righty. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining in. My name is Sachin. If you read me loud and clear, please say yes on the chat. Yeah, some share. Noma, Afros. Fantastic. All right. Let's get it started. So week number 6 with the Q&A. So we're going to follow the same format. We'll start with the Q&A. In which, the simulation part. So I'll ask you 20 questions. We'll discuss the solutions and why it is the right solution. And then we're going to take a short 5 minutes break. And in the second half, I'll take the questions and I'll try and answer those, as many as I can. Okay. So let's start with sharing the screen. I'm going to be sharing my screen with you. Let me know when you see something on the screen, please. I have shared my screen with you. Please use the chat box to let me know. And I'll just try and fix my webcam and the chat window. Is this visible? Yes, some share. All right, so welcome to the IMC's Q&A, starting with the first section. Question number, okay, you guys don't see me, do you? Am I visible? You guys see me? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, the professor. Right. All right. So I'll start with the question number 1. You are managing a software rollout in a hospital. A senior developer adds a custom dashboard feature arguing it will wow the users. It wasn't the part of the original scope. No time or cost overrun. What you should do? What should you do? Accept the change since it improved the user experience. Is that? Ah. This time when I was writing the answers, I said, all right, so the other option sounds to be easy. So let me just do something to make it a bit, bit difficult, right? So that was the plan when I was writing these questions. Think again. It wasn't the part of the original scope, but no time or cost overrun has occurred. As the sponsor of the change can remain. Submit a change request to include it officially. Good options, right? So we've got Bravos, we've got Alphas. A senior developer adds a custom dashboard feature. Okay. You know what the answer is? The answer is gold plating. Okay. The answer is Charlie. Yes, surprise, surprise. Okay. Tell me, you all were my participants, right? You all sat in my classes? Yes. Then tell me, Kuldeep, what was the definition of the scope? Come on. The definition of the scope. All the things required and only is bold, italic, underlined. The things required. So remind me if I ever said, especially during controlling the scope process, which is process number 6, in the scope management, did I ever say that no scope creep, no gold plating? Did I say that? These two things. These two are the big no's in project management. Yes. If you are supposed to make 1 cup of tea, will you ever make 6 cups of tea? No. All right. Even if that doesn't cost me money. So stick to what the scope of the project is. You don't have to do any gold plating. Why he added the new feature? Because it's a wow for the users. A wow feature is a user delight. Remember, user delight, those features which are not essentials. Even if you don't have these features, the application will run just fine. But I'm just adding it because I want to wow the users, right? Charlie is the answer. This is gold plating. So first question, nobody got right. Okay, that's a good start. Question number two, while testing the beta product, a critical database gets corrupted, causing several days of rework. What is this best classified as? You should be able to answer that if you remember the classes. Hadi, how are you today, my brother? Afros goes Delta. Retrieval goes Delta. Okay. Good questions, right? Nima goes Bravo. Kuldeep goes Delta. Hadil is still thinking. Good morning, Hadil. How are you today? Come on, come on. Should that be a change request? Should that be an issue? A defect, a risk event, a defect. Okay, Charlie. Well, Hadil gives Delta. It's a risk event. Tell me the difference between the risk and an issue, Hadil. What's the difference? Okay, I'll give you. The answer is bravo. And that's why I asked the question to Adil. What do you think is the difference between the risk and an issue? The risk is a probability that something may or may not happen in the future. Issue is the reality. So when a risk gets materialized, it becomes an issue. Now, for the risk, you may have a risk response plan. For the issues, you need to plan the workaround. Correct? This critical database already got corrupted. Something that happened. Okay. So the answer is bravo. I see a few of you actually were able to answer that correctly, but a lot of you were not. Focus, ladies and gentlemen. Question number three. The sponsor asks the use of project contingency reserves to fund an unrelated urgent initiative. How should you respond to this? Good question, right? Unrelated urgent initiatives. The sponsor wants you to use the contingency reserves to fund that. Noma gives Delta. Abdul gives Delta. Zoom user. Give me a name. Give me a name. Come on. What's your name? I see you as Zoo. Shrini. Shrini gives Delta. Arumugam. Kuldip. So it's an unrelated urgent initiative. Khadija. Hello, Khadija. How are you today? You were not in my classes, were you? You were in one of my batches? Okay, think about it. Come on. Should that be approved if that doesn't affect the project performance? Should that be declined and escalate the misuse attempt? Batch number 329. Ah, fantastic. Welcome back. Happy to have you here. Allow it if the sponsor owns the reserves and request a formal change to resource allocations. The correct answer, ladies and gentlemen, is decline and escalate the misuse attempt. Now tell me why I did that. Why the Bravo is the correct answer. I'll tell you why. There are two different types of contingency. There are two different types of reserves in project management, in risk management. One for the known unknowns, which is called the contingency reserve. It is a part of the estimation. And the second is the management reserve for the unknown risks. The project manager cannot utilize that reserve unless it is approved by the management. You remember these two things, right? Now, since your contingency reserve was specific to those identified risks, now if you start using these reserves for those unidentified, unrelated issues or the unrelated risks, then when your known unknown comes up, how would you handle that? You understand what I'm saying? Give me an eye if you understood what I'm saying here. So it's a misuse of the money which is available to me because I kept it for the known unknowns. I already identified the risks and accordingly I planned the contingency reserve. Now you want me to utilize that money to do something else. What about my risks? When these risks comes up, how am I going to handle those? When I don't have, then if I come back to you and ask for the management reserve, you'll accuse me of misusing the money then, right? Because you'll say, hey, Sachin, that's not the unknown unknown. That's a known unknown, and you are coming back to take money for that. Now, this is not allowed, right? So, bravo is the answer. Question number 4. After the delivery, a stakeholder says the system doesn't meet their need after delivery, okay, post delivery, even though requirements were signed off. So he signed up the requirements, he got the product, he says, no, the product doesn't fulfill my needs, right? What do you do next? Okay, so Bravo and Charlie, both potential answers. This is just a hint. Now you have to choose one of these two. The delivery happened already. Stakeholders signed those requirements based on which we did the delivery. And now he says it is not meeting the requirements. Katija goes Charlie. Haru goes Bravo. Noma goes Charlie. Adil. Adil goes Charlie. All right. I'll give you. The answer is Charlie. Yes, Adil. Why the answer is Charlie? Come on, tell me. I'll tell you why. Because I said there are two different parts. Whenever you read the question, you have to keep both of these parts in your mind. First is the analysis. Second is the action. You cannot take an action without analyzing the situation. So first you go back, you review your original scope and the requirement documents and see if we missed out something. If we didn't, then we go back and sit with the stakeholder and say, Mr. Stakeholder, these are the 10 requirements. These are the 3 deliverables based on these 10 requirements. We have delivered you all 3. Tell me, Mr. Stakeholder, did I miss something? Because I just went back and checked everything, right? So you must verify whether the expectations were misaligned or missed in documentation. There we go. First, analyze the situation, then take an action. Charlie is the answer. If you all understood the logic, say I. Yeah, righty. Fantastic. Comes question number 5. I hope you guys are keeping a track of the right answers that you're given and how many you have given so far. Okay. A stakeholder insists on a feature that violates the regional data privacy laws. The feature is highly desired for the business value. It adds a lot of business value, but it contradicts, violates the regional data privacy laws of a particular state or of a particular geography. What do you do? Tell me one reason why you can't go Bravo. A lot of dentals, apparently. People who are watching on YouTube, can you guys guess what the right answer is? All right. So, of course, the right answer is Delta. You have to escalate to the legal and the compliance teams. That's the right thing to do. But my question still remains the same. Why can't you go Bravo? Why you don't wish to go Bravo? Why you don't wish to ask for the written confirmation from the stakeholders? Yes, Abdul, thank you so much. How many of you remember the PMI's Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct? One of the mandatory standards of the responsibility is that you have to follow the law of the land. Correct? You have to follow the law of the land. And you need to make sure that all the compliances are in place before you close the project. This is written as one of the mandatory standards of the responsibility as part of the Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. That's why. Because even if he gives that to you in writing, you cannot go against the regional data and privacy laws. The only viable option here is to escalate to the legal and the compliance teams. Question number 6. Your lead designer resigns mid-sprint. Now, if it is mid-sprint, what methodology is that? His work is only partially complete, and no one else knows the code. What's your first action? First action. That's a fairly easy one. So in an HR project, in the mid sprint, the designer resigns. Work is partially done. No one else knows the code. What you should do? Simple question. You need to analyze the sprint impact and hold a team meeting to plan for the responsibility. What it is called adaptability. The HR values adaptability. Hey, how many of you have read those principles of HR project management? You guys all are preparing for the examination, right? By any chance, you read the HR practice guide, maybe the first 2 chapters? Anyone? If not, then just read those initial 2 chapters. Okay, pretty good chapters. All the rest, I have already covered that. during the classes, but I would want you to read those two initial two chapters. The name of the book is the HR Practice Guide, the PMI's book. Don't ask me where it is. You know the answer. Question number 7. A colleague on another project asks you to alter the cost data so that it aligns with their monthly forecast. What's your best response? It's a question of friendship over the ethics. What you gonna choose? Good morning, Cheryl. Did you just join, girl? Yes, are you? Yes. You missed out quite a few interesting questions today. Okay, so what should be the response? You gonna go with the PMI's code of ethics rather than the friendship, right? So give more priority to the ethics, right? The PMI's code of ethics requires you to act. Failing to report is complicity. Okay. Started with the question number 4. All right. So the answer is alpha. Question number 8. During a retrospective, the team reveals that user stories are often vague and unclear when sprint starts, causing the delays. What should the project manager do? What should you do? Come on. Document the issue and move on. Reassign the product owner. Introduce a formal backlog refinement cadence. And increase story point buffer. User stories are vague and unclear. The answer is, Charlie, lack of clarity signals a weak backlog grooming process. Refinement sessions help to prepare the stories before the sprint planning. And that's where you're going to take it back to. And that was the only viable alternative out of these 4. So that was rather an easy one. Question number 9. A sponsor wants to cut 2 weeks off the final delivery deadline to beat the competitor to market. Your critical path already has 0 float. What should you do first? What should you do first? You know why this is going to be easy? Because I just reiterated the law when you're reading the question just a while ago. Otherwise, most of you will go with the alpha. Tell me why not alpha? Why not alpha? Or the delta for that matter. Analyze, then action. Yes, absolutely, Adil. So the PMI requires analysis before action. Bingo. I keep saying this, right? During the classes as well. And exactly what I've written here. That's exactly my language. Compression techniques beat crashing and fast tracking only if properly assessed. Okay, so yes, Charlie is the answer. Question number 10. A customer frequently asks for new features, each requiring the scope adjustments, and team is demoralized due to constant rework. What's the best approach? New features, each requiring scope adjustments. Give me one reason why not Bravo. And I'll tell you later that why I asked this question. And why not Alpha? Anybody? All right, what's the answer? The answer is Charlie. Educate the client about the impact on change and the cost and the schedule. But the question was that it requires scope adjustment. Then why we are discussing about the cost and the schedule with the customer? Tell me. Why you're explaining cost and schedule impact, whereas the impact is on the scope. Anyone? I'll tell you why. So tell me, what's the first thing that you plan when you start planning any project? What's the first thing that you plan when you plan any project? The scope of the project, right? And why do you plan scope as the first thing? Noma? Why the scope is the first thing? Because all the rest of the things are dependent on the scope. Because based on the scope, you're gonna once you have those deliverables, then you're gonna see how many resources that we need for that. Based on the resources, you're gonna get the cost estimates, schedule estimate, duration estimation, right? All the rest of the things are based on your quality parameters are based on the requirements given by the stakeholders. Accordingly, you're gonna set up the quality parameters. So everything else that you do is based on the scope of the project, right? Now the customer who's frequently adding those features, he's looking only at the cost part, only at the scope part. But then it will have a direct impact on the cost and the schedule. So if there is an impact coming, I'm going to show that because then the customer realize, I need to pay for that. Remember controlling the scope process? I will not do anything extra. If there is a deviation from the scope baseline, I'm going to raise a change request and I'm only going to accept those changes if the customer is willing to pay me money and give me extra time. One example of the same scenario that we took during the class was the fall ceiling example. Remember the fall ceiling? That was addition to the scope, but then we asked for 300,000 extra and 20 days on the project timeline. Correct? So that's the impact on the cost and the schedule. Are you guys able to connect to which example I'm talking about? Kuldeep does. Yeah. So in that example, that is exactly the same. That's exactly the same here, right? Question number 11. Your project spans 4 time zones. Communication delays are affecting the critical tasks. The team members complain about the lack of clarity in those task handovers. That takes us back to how do we manage the virtual teams? So, this is where I thought this question from. What should you do next? Good one, right? Communication delays are affecting the critical tasks because you are in 4 different time zones. So right now it is 11:30 India time. It is 2 a.m. in New York. And that's still the Sunday night for them. Sunday early morning for them. It's 2 a.m. there. So if I write a mail right now, anyone who's in New York will read that his or her morning, which is like their morning 10 is my 8:30, correct? Or 7:30 in the evening. All right, what we need to do is we need to go for asynchronous communication, which is not based on the time zones, right? And well documented processes to reduce the friction and the time zone dependencies. That's the thing to do. All of you, except of Aru and a few other, gave the right answer. Question number 12. Your key supplier has missed a delivery milestone. The contract includes a penalty clause, the liquidated damages, the LD clause, but applying it may damage the long term partnership with the supplier. What's the best course of action? There is an LD clause. Look at that. I've got all the 4 options on the chat window right now. I have people saying Alpha, people saying Bravo, Charlie, and the Delta. Yeah, one of these will be the answer, right? That's a good trick. uh, it's like, Noah is like, hey, Hadil, I'll go Alpha, you go Bravo. One of us may be right. And Kuldeep, you go Charlie, and Shuni will go Delta. You see the difference in opinion here? All 4. Think again, think again. What is the best course of action? All of these could be the course of actions. Which one is the best one? The week meet the vendor to negotiate revised terms. Okay. Okay, well, I'll give you. The answer is you need to negotiate with the vendor to revise those terms. The PMI recommends collaborative procurement partnership before enforcing the penalties, try the resolution through the negotiations. Now, remind me, when we were talking about the negotiations, what we said, why do you negotiate with the vendor? Why do you negotiate with the vendor? What's the reason? Because you want to get the best deal, is it? What's the reason? Why do you negotiate with the vendor? We actually talked about that during the class. Lesson number 4, execution of the project, leading the team. Yes, Cheryl, for a win-win, correct? Not to get the best deal, but to reach a win-win. Now, if you apply the LD, well, that's not a win. Okay. So he missed a delivery milestone. I get it. But then I'm going to go back, sit with him because that's a long term relationship, very long term relationship with this guy. So we're going to sit. Why Charlie as procurement is not the no, I'm just doing the negotiations. Then after those negotiations, I'm going to inform the procurement. They're going to take the rest, they take on with the rest of the things. Samshir, I can negotiate, right? That if my project milestones were missed, would I ask my procurement to go and talk to the vendor? Would I say yes? That's what I'm saying. You see, please understand this. What we said during the procurement manager and the team are always on the back seat when it comes to writing the contracts and signing the contracts. I'm neither signing the contracts nor writing them. Okay. The procurement already have a contract which includes the LD clauses. Okay. Now this guy missed the milestone. No penalty has been imposed for now, by the way. If you read the question, no penalty has been enforced. Right? If I want, I can impose that penalty. But if I do so, then it damages my relationship with this guy. And I would need this guy for long. And I've been working with this guy for long, right? So in the past. So what I need to do is I need to have this collaborative partnership. You see, when it comes to procurement, it's more of partnership rather than a customer and the vendor relationship. It's more of the partnership. And I will sit with him. He's an old time friend of mine. I mean, when I say friend professionally, right? We have a long time partnership going on. So I'll sit with him and I'll say, all right, so you missed out this one. Can you give me the next milestone 2 weeks early in that case? Maybe there is a possibility, right? So I can make up for the time that I lost in this milestone, some share. Maybe if my vendor can give me the next milestone before the scheduled time, before the scheduled delivery date, maybe I can still cover it up. So let us sit, let's just try and negotiate on that. Let's just try and talk on that. If nothing works out, whatever the negotiations or the discussions that I had with him, right? I'm gonna convey the same to the procurement because I'm not authorized to change or do anything on the contract document. They'll take care of this, but that comes later. So for now, the best option is to meet the vendor to negotiate the revised terms. I hope that makes sense. So we can move on to question number 13. A technical lead begins assigning the tasks outside the WBS without notifying you. Says it's quicker this way, and a lot of people will do that during the projects. These tasks are now showing in sprint reports. What's your best response to that? A lot of Charlies, apparently. Those tasks were not in the WBS, and he did not tell you. Included those and said, it's quicker this way. Okay, let's see the answer. The answer is Charlie, you remind the lead to follow the change control and document it. You must enforce the change control without escalating unnecessarily. This preserves the governance and the team relationships because he's also your technical lead. All right. He is the lead of the development. Question number 14. You're managing a factory expansion project. A new government tax policy raises the steel cost by 20%. Yeah, procurement schedule depends on this material. What's your next step? You know why I included that question? That sounds familiar to the geopolitics nowadays. Yeah, because that's going to have impact on the projects as well, right? Hey, who's sitting from the US in this class? Anybody who's sitting from the US? There is a reason why I included that question. 20%. Because of the tax policy, the government tax policy, the steel cost is raised by 20%. What should he do? Okay, tell me one thing. The price escalation on any material, is that an identified risk or unidentified risk? In general, I'm asking. So when you plan your projects, and that's a 2 years project, let's say, or a 1 year project, do you consider the escalation in the commodities as a part of known unknown risks or unknown unknown risk? Known unknowns. So if it is a known unknown risk, that means you could identify. So then you're going to plan a contingency uh, and also a risk response plan to that. Correct? Okay, let's see the answer. Then I'm going to tell you what I'm saying. The answer is bravo, ladies and gentlemen. Trigger the risk response if it was in your risk register. Now you know why I was asking this question to you. It's a known risk. Okay. And the price escalation is a very common known risk. Price of the steel, cement, bricks for a long duration project. That's why, if you recall, the fixed price plus economic price adjustment is a contract. Remember that contract? Fixed price with economic price adjustment. So you have predefined review periods. In those review periods, you go back and you see that is there an escalation on the price because you have to revise the cost and with the vendor and the contractor accordingly. Right? So what you need to do, since it was already an identified risk and you knew that it may go up, you had a response plan to that, go ahead, trigger that risk. This is called the risk trigger because the moment it crosses threshold, say 5% was my threshold, it is going to 20%. It's a trigger condition, triggers my risk response plan. Good question, right? Bravo. Here's the answer. Question number 15. Midway through the execution, a high power stakeholder, the director of operations, unexpectedly resigns. You lose access to the critical insights for the UAT preparation. What should you do first? First thing that you should do. Escalate to the HR and wait for the replacement, or update the stakeholder register and find a new license. Put the UAT on hold until a replacement is hired, or proceed and assume the remaining stakeholders will. Why not Delta? Tell me. Why can't you go Delta? Okay. The answer is Bravo. It was an easy pick for you guys as well. You update the stakeholder register and find somebody who you can license with now. Right, stakeholder registers must reflect current realities. You identify someone who can take over from the stakeholders' influence, and this ensures continuity. Question 16, ladies and gentlemen. During the sprint planning, your team estimated 40 story points, but the product owner wants to squeeze in 60. Your team reluctantly agrees. Halfway through, team morale dips and velocity crashes. What should you do next? The team was reluctant, but they agreed. What was the story point, by the way? What was story point? It's the unit of measurement of the effort in HR projects, correct? So when you say 40 story points, so it's like 40 multiplied by 8. 8 man hours is per story point, generally, right? But then at times you also use 4 man hours per story point. So the team estimated we can do 40 story points. Product owner said 60. Team agreed. What you should do? You know what you need to do is you need to go back to the product owner and tell him how the velocity works. Okay. And why do we need to respect the velocity? You cannot go absolute haywire in that velocity, about velocity. Okay. Uh, so the PMI says that it is not very reliable between the first and the fifth sprint, correct? Why the PMI says so? Srini? For the first 5 sprints, the velocity is not, it's not very reliable. Why the PMI says that? Anybody? Come on. Yes, because the foreman and the storeman are going on, right? The first 2 stages of the Dr. Bruce Tuckman's letter of the team development, out of the 5 total stages, the first 2 are going on between these times, and that's when, during the foreman and storeman, you cannot estimate velocity for those 5. Question number 17. A key supplier signals potential delays that could cascade into your critical path. What is the most prudent project manager's response to this situation? The supplier told you, it is not delayed yet, by the way. He told you that there may be a potential delay, and he's a major supplier. He said there may be delay, potential delays. The answer is to initiate the risk mitigation by developing alternative suppliers and adjust schedule contingencies proactively. You have to be proactive as a project manager. When I've been told by the supplier that there might be potential delays next month and next to next month, I'm going to always find alternatives, beforehand, before that situation really occurs. So I'm going to go alpha is the answer. Question number 18. Your project budget is fixed, but late in the execution phase, you discover significant cost overrun due to underestimated risks. What is your immediate step? What you should do immediately? Now, that's an easy one, isn't it? Yeah. So communicate with the stakeholders, make them aware about the situation, and do the analysis before taking an action. Right? What's the answer? Bravo. That is the answer. Question number 19, ladies and gentlemen. The project deadline is fixed, but new requirements emerge that increases its scope by 15%. How should you proceed with that? The deadline is fixed. The scope is increased by 15%. So 15% more work. Shreyas, Afros goes alpha. The deadline is fixed, but scope is increased 15%. You see, if the customer or the stakeholder, say your sponsor or the product owner, if they are adding additional scope, there's nothing wrong in that actually. They can do it. But then what is required? Tell me. Adil? Anybody? If it is their requirements, they have all the rights to add new items. But then if we cannot reduce the scope, then can we increase the resources? Can you give me more money? Can you give me more time? You agree somewhere. Remember the triple constraint theorem by Dr. Herald Kurzner? Remember that? You need to juggle between three different items to deliver the fourth one. The time, cost, and money into the framework of quality meeting the customer's expectation. Dr. Bruce Tuckman, 1974. Right? So Bruce Tuckman said that if one thing is not flexible, then try and figure out what else is flexible, right? So I'm going to go alpha. I'm going to negotiate either scope or the resources, timelines, money. What is flexible for you, Mr. Customer? Give me that. I'll cover up that scope. Correct? I'm going to realign my project accordingly. Last question, ladies and gentlemen, for today's discussion. You discover critical project assumptions are invalid due to market changes. Assumptions log. Remember, we had a detailed discussion on that during the class and why it is important. What should you do? Okay, tell me one thing. When you check your assumptions log, and if you realize that these assumptions are no more valid, isn't that itself a risk? Kulip? So if my assumptions are not valid anymore, is there a risk for my project itself? I'll give you one example of that. So I said that I should be able to finish the development of the module one, assuming at the beginning of the project, assuming that the management will give me two developers. But in reality, when the execution starts, the management said, you know what, Sachin, we can give you only one developer. All right. So my assumption stands false now. That's not valid anymore. All right. Can I still complete the module in 2 weeks? Can I still do that with only one developer? No, right? Would that be a risk to my schedule now? So because my assumption stands invalid, it stands false, it itself is a risk for my project, correct? So that's where you're going to update the assumptions log, reassess the risk and the project plans and communicate with the stakeholders. That's what should be. Because you cannot continue as planned because these assumptions are not valid. You cannot cancel the project. The project assumptions are confidential. Keep them confidential. That's the most horrible thing that a project manager can do that goes against the ethics and the professional conduct. So don't do that. Alpha is the answer. That's the answer, ladies and gentlemen. So these were the questions. Give me your scores. Come on, tell me. How many correct answers you gave out of 20? 14 out of 20. Kuldeep, 16. Shreyas, 19. Vic, 18. Fantastic. 16. Tricky session, is it? Okay. 17. Retrieval and 14. 11. Aru, 11. I kept them a bit tricky today, is it? Especially the initial 5, 6 questions. When I was writing those, I said, I'm going to make them difficult. 11, 15, 14. 14 out of 17. Okay. 15 out of 16, Cheryl. Lessons learned. 9 out of 10. Vinod. Hey, how many people do we have in the session today? We have less number today, actually. Okay, so now we're going to give some rest to the brain and we'll take a short break and then we're going to come back and then I'll take your questions, okay? If you have the questions, then we can wrap up the session. So let me just go to the demo. Let's just take a 5 minutes break. That's okay. I shall see you after 5 minutes. Let's take a quick 5 minutes break. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, are we all back after the break? Roll call, please. All righty, now I'm gonna take your questions. You can type your questions in the chat window. I will read and answer them one by one. I'll try and answer as many as I can. Somebody asked me, do you have the link to the YouTube? Vinod, yes, go to the IMC's channel, the IMC Institute 9663. And that's where the first session that we did 6 weeks ago is already there. And I would definitely want this one to go in that. Very good questions, good discussion that we had today. So I would definitely want this to go into that. Questions, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, Adil, did you submit your application yet with the PMI? 4 sessions are already there. Fantastic. The last time I checked was the first one, but that's great. Oh, you did yesterday? Congratulations. Hopefully, in the next week, you're going to get the approval. Did you amend that as per what I requested over the chat? You added those sections? Yes, you did. Okay, awesome. Any question, ladies and gentlemen, that you want me to answer? Kuldeep, Debashish. I'm just waiting for you guys to write the exam now. Actually, I want to see a few more of those LinkedIn posts. How long will it take to get the approval from the PMI after submitting the exam application? 1 week is what the PMI says, but you generally get it within 48 hours to uh, say 56 hours. Probably right in the next month, September. A lot of you are signed in September. Adil, you're also planning September? The 24th of September. Okay, inshallah. Fantastic. I'm pretty sure, Debashish, you can pass that exam. And a few more who are missing today, say Aziz and Abdullah, all of these, they're also preparing for the exam. Let's see when I see those posts from Canada. When did you reach there? What part of Canada you are? GTA? Where are you? Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan, that has an exam center. It has at the Saskatoon itself. Yep. It's all the best. Quebec Avenue. Yes. It's not that cold right now, but I'll tell you something about Saskatchewan. It goes cold as hell. I can tell you that. Right? It goes very cold. And this is your first year there, you know. Take care of yourself, my brother. Right now, it is not cold, but you know, let November comes. The moment it comes, you're gonna be like, ah, Jesus, what is that? The temperature goes beyond minus 40 degrees there. That is some cold, Saskatchewan. I like Alberta more for that. I mean, so not that cold, not that hot, manageable still. Plus 45 to my. You telling me? Yeah, it is. I've seen those times, buddy. Any question, ladies and gentlemen? Kuldeep? Anyone? How are your studies are going on nowadays? What are you doing? You guys reading book? Or you're done reading that and doing the simulations now? You know what I would recommend you? Go through the recorded sessions. You have access to those, right? You have downloaded those recordings. Go through them whenever, let's say, if you're driving a car or you're sitting at the airport, you just plug that in, wear the headphones, just listen to it. Okay? Yes. And then before you go for the exam, write as many simulations as possible. Yes, Vinod. How many of you still are the part of the training? Are you still? Is there anybody who still has the training going on? Sitting in any of my batches with Trivial and still. I'm ending one batch tonight. The evening one, 8:30, 12:30. You're in that batch with Trivial or in the afternoon? Last session today. Yes, Cheryl. In the afternoon. Afternoon we still have. Hey, what class number is afternoon? Class number 5 today? With Trivial. Class number 6? Oh yes. Yesterday was the class number 5. All right, so you have a couple of more weeks to go, and by the time you'll be able to attend a couple of more of these sessions, and then when you are preparing for the exam, you're going to have even more. Cheryl, that's the last one tonight. For okay, I'm preparing for the exam in October, but need guidance to register for the PMP examination. What guidance do you need? Straightforward process, right? You first become a member of the PMI that takes $149, but it is the amount of money worth investing because that saves you $150 at the time of examination. Then you file the application. $10 is the fee for the application. You wait for the application to get approved, and hopefully it will not go into the audits. If you follow the instructions, right, and the sample applications that we share with everybody, and the form templates that we share, you file the application, wait for the response. Once you get the response, you go ahead and book the examination, $405 for that. That's the process. Yeah. Which of the following is a good example of mitigating the probability of the risk of becoming overwhelmed with a fire in a newly constructed building? Install the smoke detectors, install fireproof components, hire another company to do the part of the work that could result in a fire. Keep the phone number of the fire department handy. Guys, read that question. Tell me, what do you think is a good example of mitigating the probability of the risk? How to reduce the probability? You need to take a proactive action to reduce the probability. Install fireproof components. What's wrong with Charlie, by the way? Hire another company to do the parts of the work that could result in fire. Or install the smoke detectors. Think about it. You see, there is a close competition between Alpha and Bravo, actually. Is it not proactive to install the smoke detectors? Okay. Hey, Cheryl, what's the answer to the question? Absolutely. Told you. Didn't I say that? You see, when you say the fireproof items, oh, that's a it sounds to me like a very vague answer. Fireproof components. What components? Right? There are so many of these, right? From the insulated wires to the jumpers to the double pole and single pole devices. You need to read the question. It says the probability, reduce the probability of happening a fire. That means you need some sort of an indicator that indicates, the fire is happening. You need to take an action right now. And how would you do that? By installing the smoke detectors. That's my answer. And I was saying that, but then wanted to ask your opinion on that. Thank you for asking this question, Cheryl. It's a good one, actually. Vic answered that correctly. Vic knew. Fantastic, Vic. Any other question related to the PMP, related to the exam preparation, related to application process? Or any doubts that you have when you are reading the material? Anyone? Are we allowed to bring pen and blank paper during the exam? Nope, you are not. You are not allowed to do that. You can't even wear a digital watch. You need to have an analog watch, and you don't take anything inside other than your identification proof. Right? Although the exam center will give you reusable sheets, these are laminated sheets, and they'll give you the markers and then, there's stuff to erase that, right? So you can use the same sheet, you can write the notes, you can make the network diagrams, and then you can rub it off, and then you can reuse that. So they're going to give you two sheets, which has four different sides. Each sheet has two sides to it. You can use both the sides, but that is their material. You cannot take your own pen and the paper inside the examination center. It's a good question, actually. Everybody should know that. Any other question? Come on. All right, Cheryl has a question, guys. Which two of the following will the project manager need to ensure before effective training can take place? You need to choose two answers. Okay. Alpha, training is successfully resourced and scheduled. Two, the final project sign off has been received. Three, reminders should be sent to confirm the attendees' participation. Last one, billing for the training should have been taken place. Which two will ensure effective training can take place? I'll go. My answers are Alpha and Charlie. What are yours? What's the answer, Cheryl? Alpha Charlie? Bingo. You see, you read the question again. It says your responsibility, the project manager's responsibility is to, the training should be effective, correct? Now, to keep it effective, it should be delivered by the right resource, and everybody should be informed when the training is happening. These are two my responsibilities. Billing is the procurement or the finance department, they're going to handle this. Okay. And that has nothing to do with the effectiveness of the training because the billing will happen later. Once the training is delivered, delta goes out. Can't be the answer. Now, the final project sign off has been received. What that has to do with the training? Tell me what the final sign off of the project has to do with effective training. Nothing. It's a rather easy question, actually, because these two are the Alpha and Charlie are those things which are related to the training effectiveness. One, you make sure that the right guy, right person is taking the training program. He's qualified, he's experienced, right? And second is that everybody. So that's why we keep reminding you of these Q and A's, right? Because this is how it becomes more effective. Even if you forget during the classes, I keep telling you, hey guys, tomorrow is a Q and A session, correct? In all of my classes, I'm going to do that. My team will send you those notifications every week. This is what makes this effective. Okay. Any other question? I mean, one part is that you're doing the simulations and you found a tricky question, you paste it here and you say, all right, let's take professor's opinion. This is fine. But this Q&A, I want to answer those questions that matters to everybody in terms of, say you have a confusion about the process, you have a confusion about the time windows or turnaround times, or anything which impacts your preparation part. When it comes to the questions, we already do 20 questions every single day. And I'm not saying that you cannot paste the questions, you can, right? You can definitely paste those and I can answer those. Other than that, I'm asking the other participants if there is something that you think is a critical for your preparation and about the exam, please use the platform to ask that question. Could you please share with us the last Q&A recordings? Oh, that's with the team. They're going to do it. They're going to post that on. There are already 4 sessions, so this is the session number 6. So all of those 4 were uploaded on our YouTube channel. Please follow that channel for the regular updates, hit the bell icon so that you are informed when the new video comes up. This will definitely go onto that. It was a good discussion today, so I would definitely want this one to go into that. So can somebody paste the link of the YouTube channel here, IMC certifications channel for Manzoor to check those videos. Somebody actually did that already on the chat window, but then if you can repaste that. Okay, let me search that. We know that's that question. So we had this link. There we go. Adil did that. I'm pasting it here. That's the one. All right. You want me to plan another session next Sunday? You want to attend another one? 20 questions like these? Yeah. Yes, please. Okay. I'll arrange for another one. The problem is that, with all of these classes going on, 8 hours, 10 hours a day, and then the other stuff, uh, every single day I take out the time to write two, three questions and keep pasting. So by the time the weekend comes, I'm prepared with 20 questions. That's how I'm doing it. Uh, Not only to think about the question, you also think about the solution and what is the right solution, the explanation part, everything, right? So that takes a bit of time to write those, but I'll definitely do that if you guys would want to join that session. So we already did 6 of those in the last 6 weeks. The week 7 coming up next week. Okay, inshallah, we'll again do this. It's very helpful. Fantastic. Debashish, thank you so much for that, brother. And you can always go back and check the YouTube channel for that, for the previous sessions if you missed out any of those. All right. So if you have any other question, then please ask me. Otherwise, we can wrap it up for today. And then we'll plan another one for the next week. Anybody, any question? No further questions? If you have no further questions, say aye. I need to see. Okay. Fantastic. So in that case, we're going to close it for today. And this will go to the YouTube, so you can always go back and check that. And since you guys are telling me that you can attend the next week on Sunday, so we're going to have the Sunday session, the Q&A session, same time, 11 to 1 India time. And you can accordingly see the time on the rest of the calendars, the UAE and the Saudi calendars. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, and God bless you. And I'll just start the 2 to 6 session. Whoever is joining that one, welcome to that class. Thank you. Bye-bye. God bless you. I shall see you the next week now, inshallah. But now I'm going to stop this. Goodbye.